Do dentists really need AI? In short, yes and badly. Dentists are currently missing 27% of their calls. That's 27% of new business gone. That's 27% of existing patients unhappy. And the number one reason of why employees are leaving their jobs being that they feel overworked, putting more on their plates, isn't the solution. My name is Lenny, and by the end of this video, you'll be able to build an AI voice assistant that eliminates missed calls for dentists while boosting employees' productivity by up to 40%. Okay, so let's break down the call handling infrastructure without an AI voice assistant. So when a patient calls a dental practice, if it's during business hours and staff is available, that staff would handle that call. If they're not available, it would go straight to voicemail. And if it's not during business hours, it's just going straight to voicemail. So voicemail equals those 27% of missed calls. That means new business calling in, gone, as well as existing patients unhappy. So we want to solve this problem. All right, so now that we're in Vapi, we're actually going to navigate to the API reference in Vapi. You can find that by clicking the documentation tab when you go to vapi.com, and then the API reference tab is where we're going to be working from. So once you come to the API reference tab, we're going to go straight to create assistant, and this is where we're going to actually build the voice assistant to be triggered or called upon in Make. All right, and this is how we're going to be able to input those dynamic variables so that any information pulled from AirTable will be inputted into the prompt to be used by the voice assistant. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. So when building the voice assistant, the first thing you need to do is put in your authorization information. So here you're going to need to grab your bearer token from Vapi, and you can find that by going to the API keys, and your private key is exactly what you need. So you're going to want to copy this, navigate right back to the API reference, and input that here. Perfect. So now that we have our bearer token inputted into the authorization field, let's go ahead and start building this voice assistant. And before we go over to Vapi, if you're looking to implement an AI voice assistant into your business like the one we're creating in this video or something similar, go ahead and schedule a discovery call with us by clicking the Calendly link in the description. So to start off, you might want to read the documentation because there's a lot in here. For this video, we're going to be quickly going through to build this dentist voice assistant. But keep in mind, when it comes to building voice assistants, there's so many custom abilities that Vapi allows us to do, and they're always updating this. So always great to check on the documentation to really have a great understanding what you can do with these voice assistants when building them in the API reference tab. So let's go ahead and start with the transcriber, and we're going to use DeepGram. Provider, we're going to select DeepGram. For the model, we're going to do Nova 2 General. Language, we're going to do English US. Smart format, we're going to keep that just default. Language detection, select language automatically. Okay, no, we're going to leave that off as well. This just, allows you to, if true, swap transcribers to detect languages automatically. We're not going to do that. For keywords, we don't need anything here. Now, if you wanted, for instance, for dental, it might be useful to put in specific words so the model will know if it's saying, some specific dental term and know exactly what it is, how to spell it for the transcription. So it's just be a little more accurate in conversation. So that's where you can add keywords if you'd like. All right. We're not going to use that for this voice assistant. All right. And for the endpointing, we're just going to leave that blank as well. Keep it default, and we'll move forward here. For the model, we're going to use OpenAI. All right, and this is the LLM. So just to review again, this is the transcriber. We use DeepGram, Nova 2 General, US, left the rest of this blank because it's unnecessary for us. And from here, we're going to use model. We're going to do OpenAI. Messages, now this is where the prompt would go. All right, and for the role, we're going to select system. So I actually pre-created a prompt, and I'm going to go ahead and show you guys that and how we created that. The call flow structure for the voice assistant will be, once a patient calls, the voice assistant will greet the patient, a conversation will ensue, extracting the call reason. And this to book an appointment with the dentist, then we'll go ahead and go down this path where if it's a returning patient, all we need from them is to collect their preferred appointment date and time, and we'll go ahead and book that appointment. If it's a new patient, then we'll collect the necessary information in their name, their preferred number, email, and reason for the appointment, along with the preferred date and time for that appointment. If the call reason is just a general inquiry, then the voice assistant will answer that general inquiry, and that will just be all based off of the information that the client would give us to put in the knowledge base for this voice assistant. After each call has ended, or right before each call ended, there's a quality assurance stage. So after we answer questions, general inquiry, or after they book an appointment, there'll be a quality assurance where the voice assistant just asks if there's any more questions or things they need. If not, the call will end. From there, we'll have post-call automations in updating the call dashboard. All right, so that's going to be this voice assistant that we build. And this voice assistant specifically, again, it's going to be able to book appointments, be triggered via inbound calls, as well as go ahead and update a call dashboard. So when it comes to creating a prompt, there's so many variables, and I've broken this down previously in some of my other videos. So if you're interested to really see how to break down prompts in detail, go ahead and check out my previous videos. And you'll be able to see that there, where we built a property management voice assistant as well as an HVAC voice assistant. So to build this prompt, I did it in a similar way that I did in the other videos. I used OpenAI. Starting with context, I just put everything in here relating to the voice assistant that we're building. It's going to need to book appointments and answer general questions based off of that call flow that we broke down earlier. The dental practice will be named Shiny Teeth. For the knowledge base, we're going to need specific things like a business overview section, business information, acceptable insurance, services offered. This is just fast tracking the process of creating the prompt. All right, so all information necessary that OpenAI would need to build a prompt that we need, I'll put in context. When it comes to examples, we're actually using the voice assistant sample that we created in the prior video. We built a property management voice assistant. So if you want this specific prompt, I'm going to go ahead and input that into our Skool community. It's a free community. The link is in the description. So if you want this prompt here, template, and it's everything you see here, go ahead and join the community. We do weekly Q&As. We do hackathons where we build voice assistants in detail based off of what you guys would like to see us build, and a whole bunch more. So go ahead and check that out. But all right, so we use that as an example, and this is just an example for formatting and just other aspects of what we want ChatGPT to spit out for us. And then lastly, the instructions. So I said, please create an AI voice assistant prompt using the information in context. This voice assistant prompt should have a similar format to the prompt provided in example, but customized based on what is provided in context. So this is exactly what it gave me, okay? And exactly based off of what we gave it as an example. So there's a persona of the AI voice assistant section, knowledge base section, including the business overview, business information, services offered, accepted insurances. And then it goes into the rules section, all right? And these rules are based off of what we saw above, but we're gonna kind of tweak these slightly here. And lastly, the steps. So in general, it's booking an appointment and then answering general questions. And there's a split if it's a new patient or existing patient, because existing patients, we don't need to collect any additional information, but if they're new, we do. So it separated those, as you see here, steps for existing patient versus steps for new patients. And we kind of need to tweak and adjust these things slightly. So let's navigate over to Notepad++. Now, the last part is the steps to follow. We want to understand the reason for the call. All right, so ask the reason for the call. Then listen intently to understand the caller's needs. All right, ask additional questions to clarify for the reason of the call if necessary. So this is just, in some cases, we want to be able to just understand, and if something's a little abstract, ask additional questions so the voice assistant can take the proper path. After the reason for the call is collected, follow the next steps according to if they're a new or existing patient. All right, now if they know if they're a new or existing patient, well, existing patients will have that information extracted and put in the caller information. So that's exactly what we described here. Returning callers will have their name provided in the first name field in caller information. New patients will have an empty first name field. All right, so basically what we did here is we don't need to say we'll have every field filled out. It's essentially the first name. Every new patient will have the first name field filled out. So that's what we marked that as the criteria for if they're a new or existing patient. If they're a returning patient here, we don't need to collect their information, so we'll just go straight to their call reason. So if it's scheduling an appointment, we need to collect their preferred date and time for the appointment, and then collect their reason for the appointment. All right, this is additional information for the dentist to have knowing going into this appointment. Lastly, confirm all collected details and try and book the appointment. Okay, so when it comes to booking the appointment, that's going to actually be a function on call. So we'll send that off to Make. It'll check cal.com to see if that availability is there. If not, it'll return 3 alternate availabilities. And then lastly here, if the appointment is booked, then notify the patient that their appointment is scheduled. If not, take the appropriate next steps based on the call response. And that's what we'll include in the response as well. Hey, not available, but here are 3 alternate booking appointments. Okay, after they find a booking appointment that works for them, it will be booked, and then it'll move on to the caller satisfaction check. If the patient is calling for a general question, it'll just answer the general question in a very concise manner. All right, not get too extreme, but it'll all be based on the information that we had in the knowledge base. And lastly, once the general question is answered, it'll go through the call satisfaction check to make sure everything's good and then end the call there. If it's a new patient, we'll collect their details in their name. All right, that's full name, first, last, their preferred contact number, their email address, as well as their insurance information. And when it comes to their insurance information, I actually missed that here. So let's go ahead and put that here as well. Just collect the caller's insurance provider. Perfect. And then we'll also add here, notify the caller if the insurance provider is accepted, and if not, then confirm with the caller if they would like to move forward. And this just alerts the caller if we accept their insurance or not. If not, then we definitely want to alert them so that they know. So going forward, if they want to book an appointment or if they actually want to use this practice. So after we collect the information necessary, we'll go ahead and move on to the call reason. If they want to book an appointment, it's a similar process to if they're a returning patient. So we'll collect their preferred date, reason for the appointment, try and schedule the appointment, and then let them know once it's booked. If it's a general question, same thing. Answer the general question and go straight to the call satisfaction check. So it's pretty simple here as a prompt. This prompt actually, again, will be provided along with the previous prompt from the previous video in our Skool community. So click the link in our description to be able to access these prompts in totality. So what we're going to do is copy this prompt. And we're just going to paste this straight into the API here. Okay, so now that we have our prompt figured out and inputted, we're going to continue on. So for tools, we are going to need to make a tool to book an appointment. So we'll go ahead and make that next here. So what we're going to want to do is start by choosing the type of tool it's going to be. And this is going to be a function tool. So after you select function tool, when it comes to async Boolean, we want that to be false. So async, what we mean by this is we want it to wait until it gets the response to move forward. So if we had true here, it would just continue on in the conversation. Because we're putting false, it's going to stop and wait to get the response. So because it's booking an appointment, we want it to wait because we want it to know if it's booked or gives it alternate responses or alternate dates so the voice assistant can go ahead and book appointments appropriately. So when it comes to the messages, what we're going to do is on tool start, we want it to, and what we're doing here is these are messages the voice assistant will say when it triggers the function. So when it's triggering the function, there's going to be a time period where it sends that webhook to make, and then it needs to receive that response. So in that meantime, it's going to say this specifically. In general, it's just going to say, give me one moment. All right, so it's going to say, give me one moment when it triggers this specific function, and this is going to be to book an appointment. All right, we're going to close messages, and then move on to function type, or the type, I should say. We're going to click function for the type, and then we're going to go down to function object, and for the name, we're going to call this book appointment. And for the description, it's going to be describing exactly what this function does. All right, so for this one, we are going to say used to book dental appointments. So pretty simple, clear, straight to the point. So after description, we're going to move on to the parameters. And for type, we're going to put object. And then for the specific properties, we're going to add a property. First property we're going to add is full name. So full name. For type, we're going to go string. And then for description, we're going to say the full name of the caller. So after full name, we'll close that and create another property. It'll be date, time. Open this, string, description. This is the date and time for the appointment. Perfect. All right. And now that we have the date time property good to go, we'll add another property, email address. For email address, it will be a string again. And description, this is the email address of the caller. Perfect there. And we will minimize that one. And lastly, this will be additional info. So this will be the information of why they need to schedule the appointment. And this will be, the description here will be the reason for the appointment. There we go. So now that we have our properties in place, we'll go ahead and move on to what is required. So for this, we will need the date time property to be required. So we will just include that. Lastly, when it comes to the server, so when it sends the function call out, what server URL is this going to be sent to? So this is where we're going to navigate over to make.com, and we're going to go ahead and create a webhook. Custom webhook, create webhook, and we will call this dental practice, and we will press save. All right, so while this is doing its thing, we'll navigate back to creating the voice assistant, and we'll come right back up to this. But that same URL that we're going to be sending our function calls to in the book an appointment function call is also going to be where we're going to be triggering the voice assistant. So when we triggered in Vapi to send that webhook to Make, it's going to go to the same server URL, as well as the end of call function where it'll update the call dashboard. We're going to use the same Make webhook, which we'll input into the server URL places here. And we'll also have to do this in Vapi, and I'll show you exactly how to do that. And that's how you actually trigger the voice assistant through Make. So let's go back to our webhook, copy address to clipboard, and paste it here. All right, so now we have this book appointment function set up. We will go ahead and lock that in. We'll minimize the tool function. But this is where you'd also create a function for transferring calls, even ending calls. All these things you can create in this tool array. So you can also just create tools and save them in the Vapi dashboard. And from there, you can just call upon the tool IDs and then be able to pull them from here. But you can do it from Vapi dashboard or just by creating a tool here in the API reference. But for our case, we just built it out custom. So let's continue here. When it comes to the provider, we're choosing OpenAI, and this is for the LLM model. We're going to go GPT-4o. Fallback models, these are just models. If GPT-4o isn't working, or what it fall back on, we'll leave that blank for now, but you can put GPT-4 or GPT-4 mini or whatever you'd like. So that's a cool customization you can input. When it comes to semantic caching enable, we leave that default, so I don't touch that. For temperature, I like to put it at 0.7. All right. For knowledge base, we actually have this in the prompt, so no need for an external knowledge base. So we'll just go ahead and skip this. And same thing, you can create a custom knowledge base and then attach it via the file ID here. So that's what you have to do. You actually have to save that. And you can do that by, again, in the API reference, by one of the tool calls here, or specifically files, and just upload that file as PDF or specific formats they accept. And then you can just attach it here in the API reference for this voice assistant. We're going to leave that blank. Max number of tokens, we're just going to put 250. Emotional response enabled. And then when it comes to number of fast turns, this is just the number of turns, I guess, that'll use a cheaper, lower model before going to 4.0. We're going to leave this blank as default. Next, we're going to move on to the voices. So we're going to select 11 labs. If I can find it. There we go. And for the fill-in directions, we're going to put false. For the provider, we're going to put 11 labs. For the voice, we're going to use, let's use Paula here. For stability, we're going to do 0.5. For similarity boost, we're going to do 0.75. For style, we're going to keep that at a 0. User speak boost, we're going to leave that default. We just want that false, or we'll just put false there. Optimizing street latency. For this, what we're going to do, so this actually just optimizes latency. It's defaulted to 3. We'll keep that default as well. Enable parsing. This enables the use of 11 labs parsing. It's default to false. So again, we'll keep that default. For the model, we're going to use 11 labs 2. Turbo V2. Okay. We do see 2.5 or 2.5 here. I've had, touch and go results with 2.5. I need to test some more. We're going to use Turbo for this specific voice assistant. When it comes to the language string, we're just going to leave that blank. All right, for chunk plan, enabled is default to true. So we'll go ahead and just put true here. Minimum number of characters, I like to just put 1. For punctuation, I also like to add period here. All right, so this is just when it sends off those chunks to the voice provider. And lastly here, the format plan, we're going to go ahead and put that to true. Default is true. For the rest of these things, we'll just leave them alone. Moving on to the first message mode. We want the system to speak first, so we're going to click speak first. For HIPAA, we're going to put false because we do want recordings. For client messages, we're going to just put true for tool call results, as well as tool calls. So those are the 2 client messages that we want to select here, and continue on to server messages. And these will be messages that are sent out to the webhook when it comes to end of call report, when it comes to booking the appointment function, even when it comes to the triggering the call. So we'll go ahead and come down here. We'll want to select end of call report. Then we also want to add tool call. And then we might be good to go here. I believe that's it. We just need end of call report, tool call, and then we're solid. All right. So I'll go and delete that. And let's continue on. Silence timeout. We'll just leave that default. So 30, max duration seconds. I like to just keep it at 600. So just 10 minutes. Background noise. I'll keep it off, but you can put it on or, leave it as is, but I like to just keep it off. Backend channeling, we'll put false here. Background denoising, we'll put false. Model output messaging, we'll just leave that blank. Transport configuration, we'll leave that blank. Name, we'll call this dental office video. Vid. Perfect. From there, for the first message, similar to how we put those dynamic variables in the prompt. And just to review, for the prompt, the dynamic variables are here. And to input these and have them automatically extracted, how we're going to do it, you just need to put double curly brackets around the variable that you want to be replaced if it's extracted from the Airtable CRM. All right, so when it's triggered, it goes through the CRM. And then if these fields are present, then it will replace the first name with the first name field, so on and so forth, down to the insurance, including the current time. All right. We're going to do that same thing for the first message. We're going to say, hello, double curly, first name. These are just dynamic variables. All right. This makes it really easy to include, subtract, and adjust dynamic variables without having to go and adjust the entire prompt. So, hello, first name. Thanks for calling. Shiny Teeth Dental. How can I help you today? And that will be the first message. When it comes to voicemail detection, we'll keep that just off. Voicemail detection types, off. Machine detection timeout, off, default. All default there. Voicemail message, none needed. End of call message, we'll just leave that default there. End of call phrase, we'll just leave that default again. No metadata needed. And this is the server URL. So We're going to use that same server URL. I'm going to copy that same one that we're using for the function call, and we'll put that there. This is for the end of call reports. So all end of call reports will be sent to this URL, which is the make automation. So we'll update the call dashboard with the end of call results. Server secret, no need for that. And then we'll go down to the analysis plan. So for the summary prompt, what we're going to do here is input a similar message to the summary that we used for, again, the property management voice assistant we created in our prior video. So I'm just going to copy and paste the summary prompt that we used there. We're going to paste it there. Summary request timeout, we'll leave that default. Structured data request timeout, we'll leave that default. Successful evaluation, we'll leave that default. We'll continue down. For the structured data prompts, this is going to be the directions for the structured data. So we're going to put this, and first off, we want to identify exactly what we're going to be extracting. So for new patients, we want their first name, last name, email address, preferred number, and then insurance provider. So those are the things we're going to want to extract from this call, as well as the call reason. We'll say these are the call reason. First name, last name, email, address, phone number, and insurance number of the caller. And then we're going to give some extra information specifically for the call reason. The call reason output can only be one or a combination of the following. And then we'll say booking appointment, general question, or other. Perfect. Now we'll actually go down, and this is where we're actually getting to the individual fields that we'll be extracting. So breaking down the call reason, first name, last name, email, phone number, and then insurance provider along with the call reason. So for type, we're going to say it's an object, and then we'll go straight into the properties. And I actually just realized I mixed this up. So the structured data prompt here, this is actually for the description here. So I'm going to throw that there, and we'll come back up to the structured data prompt and fill that in. But right now we're plugged in on the properties, so we'll go through the properties here. So the first property will be first name. Change this to object, and then put type, string, and then for description, and we'll put this is the first name of the caller. Now we'll move on to the next property, which will be last name, be an object, type, string, description. This is the last name of the caller. That one's good to go. Go next, which will be phone number, be an object, type, string, description. This is the phone number for the phone number of the caller. All right. Then we'll continue down and do the same thing for the email address, call region, and insurance provider. So email address, object, type, string, description. This is the email of the caller. And then we'll continue on to insurance provider, object, type, string, description. This is the insurance provider for the caller. Insurance provider. And then lastly, call reason. It's going to be an object, type, string, description. This is the call reason of the call. Should only be one way combination of boom. We will do book. What did we say in the description? We said, just going to copy this. So book appointment, and we will say same thing. Book appointment or other. Okay. So there we go. We now have this thing set up to extract the first name, last name, phone number, email address, insurance provider, and call reason if they're a new patient, and that's collected on the call by the voice assistant. Let's revert and go back up to the structured data prompts, and we'll fill in you. And these are just, given it a frame of mind, similar to like an LLM, almost like giving it instructions. So you are an expert data extractor. You will be given a transcript to analyze. Then we'll say extract structured data based on the JSON schema. Or we'll say structured data per the JSON schema. And then we'll remind it again here. The call reason can only be one or a combination of the following. We'll do the same thing we did prior, which is copy and paste from the description down here. All right, so lastly, we're going to create or input the required fields. So the required field is going to be the call reason, as that is the only field. Actually, it might be a short call, so we're not going to have any required fields. We're going to continue on to the next categories here, or the next fields. Artifact plan, we don't need this. Recording enabled, actually, true. We want recording enabled. No video recording enabled. So we'll just put that to false. Recording path, no reason, keep that a default. Messaging plan, and this is so you can put idle messages like, are you still there? Or how are you doing? And those different things during gaps in the conversation. All right, I'm going to leave this blank for simplicity reasons for this voice assistant. And then start speaking. You can input a number of seconds to start speaking or wait to speak again. So this is how long the assistant waits before speaking. So this is, we'll put this at 0.01 as far as just responding. Smart Boolean. So this just determines the customer speech considered done. Determines if a customer speech is considered done using the model. It's set to default. So default to false. So we'll just keep that false there. And for these other aspects, we'll just keep them default. Stop speaking after one word, and that's the voice assistant will stop speaking after one word. Voice seconds. This is the second customer has to speak before the assistant stops talking. We'll go 0.1. And this is the number of words the customer has to say. So this is the number of seconds customer has to speak for. Okay, yeah, perfect. And then back off seconds, we'll just leave that default as well. Monitoring plan, listen enable, control enable, we'll leave this blank, and then credentials will leave blank as well. So now we have completed this voice assistant, and now that we have completed this and filled out all the information necessary, we're going to go ahead and create this thing. To create it, you'll go ahead and come up to the top and press send. And voila, the voice assistant has been created. Now, to double check that this voice assistant has been created, we have this ID here. So what I'm going to do is just copy this ID, copy this. I'm going to come over to update assistant. And authorization should be good to go. Path, we'll just put in that assistant ID. Press send, and perfect. Now it has pulled the exact voice assistant that we just created. Okay. So now this voice assistant is created, let's go ahead and trigger this thing. We're going to be using Make for the automations. The call dashboard will be Airtable. The CRM will also be Airtable, and we'll be booking appointments through cal.com. We build the voice assistant using the Vapi APIs, but we actually store that in the Make automation to trigger. To trigger this thing, we need to complete the last component in Vapi. So we'll go to the Vapi dashboard for this last part. And once we are on the dashboard, we will go to settings. And then from here, we need to change the server URL. All right, so the server URL, we will delete this. And there's a secret you can input as well, but what we're going to replace it with is this webhook from Make. So again, everything will be going through this one Make scenario. That includes triggering the voice assistant, which I'll show you how that happens right now. That includes the post-call automations and the in-call function, as well as the on-call functions, I should say, which is booking an appointment. So that'll all happen through this same scenario, and we'll have a router that, based off of exactly why a message has been sent, it'll go down specific routes. But I'll show you how to do all of those things. So when triggering a voice assistant, to do it through Make, when you purchase a number and after you purchase a number, you want to make sure the assistant or there is no assistant selected. Okay? When there's no assistant selected, you'll get this notification that says Vapi will send assistant requests to your server URL, and this is the server URL that we just inputted in our settings to fetch the assistant. Okay? So now every time someone calls this number, that webhook message is sent to this server URL. Now we need to head over to Make. And now that we have this server URL ready to go, we need to send the response. So we'll send a webhook response. Perfect. And then for the response of the webhook, I will go ahead and show you guys the format that we will need to use. So for the format, we'll go back to the documentation. And we will go to Assistance, Dynamic Variables. And when you scroll down here, you will see exactly the format we need, including the dynamic variable fields to call this voice assistant or have it answer when somebody calls in. So the format here, subtract the customer number and the phone number ID that you'd be calling from. We don't need that because that's for an outbound. So with our example, we just need the assistant ID and the assistant overrides here. So I've already copy and pasted this into Notepad++, and we will provide this template in the Skool community. So again, it's free. Make sure to go ahead and join that by clicking the link in the description, and you'll be able to access all these templates, including the prompts that we created for this voice assistant, as well as this template to actually be able to call the voice assistant using these dynamic variables. So go back over to Notepad++, and this is the format, and this is what will be provided in the Skool community. But I'm gonna just paste the voice assistant ID. And then for assistant overrides, this is where we'll fill in the first name variable, last name, phone number, email address, insurance, and current date and time as dynamic variables when this voice assistant is triggered. So now that we have this set up, we're going to come back over to make and input this as the response. Okay. So everything is good to go here. To fill these in, we will need to add a step before this to where we trigger AirTable and extract any patient information available via trying to match that up by the phone number they're calling from. For now, we'll just leave it blank. All right. So what we will format, though, is the date and time. So this is how I format the date and time. For one, what we'll need to do is go to the calendar. We'll press format date. I'm going to add semicolon there. So what we're going to do is pick now, and then we're going to come over to, I believe it's period, day, period, y, and then lowercase mn. For the time zone, we're going to use America, Los Angeles, because this is where I'm located. So PST or West Coast, and that will be that. So perfect. So at this point, the current date and time should be formatted correctly. So the voice assistant has that when booking the appointments, and we should be good to go here. All right. So when it comes to this specific scenario, now all we need to do is trigger the scenario and make sure that it works properly. And before we actually trigger it, I do need to adjust this. I did mess up. It's supposed to be a slash here. Just remember that. Los Angeles. So now this is good to go. Okay. Perfect. And let's go ahead and call this voice assistant. So what we'll do before we call is press run. So we'll actually see this thing run. And let's see if this voice assistant picks up and does what we programmed it to do.
Hello, thanks for calling Shiny Teeth Dental. How can I help you today?
Yeah, looking to book a doctor's appointment with the dentist, I guess I'd just say. I have a really bad toothache.
I'm sorry to hear about your toothache. Let's get that sorted out for you. Are you a returning patient or a new patient?
New patient.
Got it. I'll need to gather some information from you to set up your appointment. Can I start with your full name, please?
Yeah, Lenny Cowens.
Nice to meet you, Lenny. What's your preferred contact number?
Yeah, my preferred contact number is 949.
Thank you, Lenny. Could you please provide your email address? Could you spell it out for me?
Sure, it's Lenny.
Thank you, Lenny. Lastly, can you tell me which insurance provider you have?
Sure, I have Blue Cross.
Great, we accept Blue Cross insurance. Now let's find a suitable time for your appointment. When would you prefer to come in?
Yeah, let's
We are open Monday through Saturday.
do next week Thursday at 2:00 p.m.
All right, Lenny. To confirm, you would like an appointment for next week Thursday at 2 p.m. for your toothache. Let me book that for you. Please hold on for a moment. Give me one moment. Lenny, it looks like next week Thursday at 2 p.m. is not available. Could you please provide an alternative date and time that would work for you?
No worries, that's it. Thanks. All right, so everything worked as expected. The one thing that didn't work as expected was the response, and that's because it sent that message straight to this webhook, and the response was not appointment booked. It was essentially the voice assistant again. So it just went ahead and said, sorry, not available, because that's what the response it got. It didn't get the response of, hey, this thing has been booked. So that's how that call went, but everything worked perfectly. Well, that's it for part 1 of this tutorial. If you found this video valuable, please consider liking this video. It really helps us grow. And if you want to catch part 2, where I'll be using Make to complete this voice assistant and its automations, including that appointment booking function using cal.com, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. It really helps us as we're on our journey to reach 1,000 subscribers. Other than that, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Peace.